Hello again, everybody. Scott Casper, Takedown. We continue our coverage of the sport. We go coast to coast, border to border, and yes, even the ships at sea. But this time we're going to stop in Pennsylvania. We're going to talk a little bit about the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic. The one that's coming up is the 40th edition. Here to talk to us about it is Kraig Nellis. Kraig, how are you?
I'm great, Scott.
The Dapper Dan charities largely benefit from this event, and so do the thousands of kids that have wrestled in it over the years. This year, it's a rather interesting year as far as competition goes. Talk to us a little bit about the last year, for example, is Pennsylvania versus USA, and then it was the WPIAL versus Virginia. But I think Virginia's been replaced this year by Oklahoma.
Yeah, let me explain that. So our model every year is that we have a preliminary match, and that preliminary match is the Western Pennsylvania, um, which we refer to as the WPIL here. So our little region in southwestern Pennsylvania takes on another state every year. We pick a different state each year. Last year was Virginia. Previous years that come to mind were New York, Ohio, uh, New Jersey, Delaware, etc. This year we're bringing in Oklahoma. Kevin Crutchner brought his son 2 years ago, who wrestled in the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic on the USA team. Had such a great experience that he was really excited to bring an Oklahoma team back. So we've worked with Kevin, and he's done a fabulous job, and he's got his state and his community all excited about being represented in the 40th annual Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic.
It's a huge undertaking. It's not something that just happens overnight. Talk to us about developing the Dapper Dan from year to year. How does it happen?
Well, we have a committee of about 14, 15 guys. They do a great job. I'm the co-director along with Frank Volcano. Frank has a ton of experience running wrestling events. You may know him from his Powerade tournament at Christmas time, one of the most prestigious high school Christmas tournaments in the country. So, um, we've delegated duties, and then we work as a team. And there's a number of things that start happening in the fall, the previous year. We need to lock in our venue, the Pitt Fieldhouse, every year, and our hotel headquarters. It's the DoubleTree, Pittsburgh and Green Tree. It's been the same location for the past 39 years. We have a great relationship with them. So each year, this is like planning a wedding. One of the most important things that we do as a committee is reach out to our corporate sponsors. We need their financial support to put on a first-class event like this. We have an operating budget of over $50,000, and the harsh realities is that the ticket sales just don't cover the operating expense. So, our philosophy is just like the philosophy that was started back in 1936 with the Dapper Dan dinner here in Pittsburgh. The philosophy is, if you provide a good product at a fair price, people will come. And we do exactly that. We think our product, by showcasing local talent in Western Pennsylvania competing against another state, and then bringing in the best high school seniors across the country in each weight class, and allowing the state of Pennsylvania to challenge them, is a great product. We do our best to keep the prices for the tickets very reasonable so that people will come. They do come. We get over 3,000 people at the Pitt Fieldhouse every year, and we like to raise our sponsorship to cover our operating costs, so that the ticket sales are really the gravy, and that is the money that we use to support Dapper Dan Charities Youth Sports League. And so what we do with the proceeds of that money is we have a wrestling program in the inner city via the Boys and Girls Club. And so in our city schools, there are no youth wrestling or no youth wrestling programs. So we're able to provide the only wrestling experiences for elementary wrestlers through the Boys and Girls Club as a result of the success of the Wrestling Classic each year.
I love it, and there's a huge purpose. It may sound like a charitable purpose, but the idea is, of course, is to allow good people to extend offers to young people to continue their wrestling to continue their competition, to become better participants in our society, and contributing members of our society. You can be a participant in society and contribute nothing. And sadly, you're missing your mark, you're missing your goal. But 20 Wrestling Classic participants at last count, by my count anyway, have represented the United States in Olympic competition. I think we have 7 gold medalists last count, 1 silver, 2 bronze. I think that's a significant statement about how important those young people are and how good they are, the ones that actually do make it to the Dapper Dan.
Yeah. Each year at our welcome banquet, the night before, Frank Volcano addresses, the wrestlers, the coaches, the families, the sponsors that are there, and talks about the previous athletes and wrestlers that have walked through the Wrestling Classic doors that have gone on to win national championships, multiple national championships, that have represented our country in the Olympics and have won medals. And those are some very impressive statistics. And really, he's making a statement that to these young high school seniors that says, hey, you're crossing through these same doors and you're on the path to achieve some of the same great things that these others before you have gone on to do.
Mm. And we're doing it with good partners too. Let's talk a bit about those that help you make up the difference. We call them team sponsors, but more than that, they are great partners in this endeavor. Can you identify some of them?
Sure. Well, U.S. Steel has been a great partner for a number of years. Former wrestler at the University of Pittsburgh, so we have a direct relationship with them. The UPMC Health Plan has been a longtime supporter of the program. General Nutrition Company is a sponsor. One of our committee members is John Knapp. He's a referee, Division I. He owns General Fabricating Services. He's been a great sponsor. We have another gentleman in the community named Chuck Prezia, who owns iDoc, and again, been a great sponsor. And we've been, each year, we've been very, very fortunate to renew the majority of our sponsors year in and year out. And then it's always a goal to bring on 1 or 2 new sponsors. I'd be remiss at saying also Joe Galli wrestled in one of the first classics at 98 pounds. And he is the president and CEO of TTI Group, which owns a number of companies that you're familiar with, whether it be Milwaukee Tools or the Dirt Devil or Stiletto Hammers, etc. And Joe does a great job and has been very nice to support the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic for many, many years.
I recall his name, but I don't remember where he wrestled.
Joe wrestled at North Carolina for Coach Billy Lamb.
Yeah.
And
I just wanted to hear you say Bill Lamb's name.
And he reflects on his first NCAA. He won an ACC championship at 118 pounds. That tells you how old Joe and I are. When the weight class was still 118. Yeah. And I believe he wrestled Leroy Smith in his first match at the NCAA championships. So.
Oh, how important is that? I mean, great partnerships, people continuing to give back, yeah?
Yes.
Hmm. And I know that there is some relationship with the NWCA in there as well, whether it's them placing an ad in the program, but largely endorsing the idea that leadership through our sport is rather easy when we endorse it and work it.
Yes, I just spoke with Mike Moyer yesterday, and he again confirmed his ongoing support of the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic. Over the past years, Mike has attended the Classic. He has spoken to the wrestlers and coaches at our welcome banquet. He's had other representatives attend. So we're very thankful for the alliance and the partnership that we have with Mike Moyer and the rest of the team at the NWCA.
Talk to me about Dr. Steve Joseph, if you would.
Yeah, Dr. Joseph. Steve Joseph was the recipient last year of the UPMC Community Service Award. That award is in memory of my brother Kurt, who used to work at UPMC and was an avid supporter of wrestling, the Wrestling Classic, but more importantly in the community, where Kurt volunteered a lot of his time in areas that were economically challenged and that were high risk areas, and did a lot of service there. So what we did is when Kurt unexpectedly passed away, his teammates at UPMC, Kurt was the chief medical officer there, they came to us and wanted to do something special. And really, it became very apparent that the right thing to do was to recognize people in our community who have donated a lot of their time and have over many years and have had a tremendous influence and impact over a lot of young kids, and recognize them. These are people typically that haven't gotten recognition for wrestling,
Sure.
for accomplishments. Over the past 13 years, the people that we've inducted, we have often referred to them as the father of their community of wrestling, because a lot of them started wrestling in their garages by buying a mat, ran the wrestling programs at the YMCA for many years. So that's what the program is. Steve Joseph last year represented Kiski area and the Allegheny Kiski. He was, donated, 30 years of his time towards Kiski
Amazing.
wrestling. He had 3 boys that came through their programs. They've gone on to coaching roles here in Western Pennsylvania, and so his legacy continues to live on. So here's Steve Joseph, who maybe wrestled in high school. Maybe some of our recipients might have wrestled in college, but not most of them. But we're able to recognize them in their own backyard. But the communities usually come out in full droves because it's the right thing to do. They want to show their appreciation, and it's usually a nice emotional moment for the recipients at the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic when over 3,000 people give them a standing ovation.
See, and I was misspoken earlier, by the way. I said Dr. Steve Joseph. Steve Joseph won the Dr. Kurt J. Nellis Memorial Award, or was the recipient of the Dr. Kurt J. Nellis Memorial Award. So I misspoke, but and I like the idea that you're recognizing people from all walks of life who continue to contribute to the sport with time spent, the effort. Obviously, he has 4 sons I know wrestled in the Kiski area, so we have a great appreciation for that. It's obvious that it was more than just his kids, though. He loves the sport of wrestling. Who is this year's recipient of the Dr. Kurt J. Nellis Memorial Award?
This year is Jim Shields, and my family has known Jim for a long time. He has supported the Borough Wrestling program. Again, well over 25 years, probably closer to 30, if not more than 30 years. Donated his time through the youth wrestling program for many years, became the president of their wrestling boosters, became the president of the Keystone Wrestling League, one of the many leagues that are here that support youth wrestling. Then, as his kids moved on, he volunteered at the junior high and on into the high school. All 3 of his sons have wrestled in the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic. One of them was awarded the turning point of the match, I believe, because he pinned his opponent, and that's one of the awards that we give out. And ironically, this year, one of his sons named Josh, who has gone on to become the head coach of Borough, is one of our honorary coaches. We pick 2 honorary coaches from Western Pennsylvania each year as honorary coaches. So it's a nice year to recognize Jim and everything that he's done for the Borough community. It's amazing. Now that the word has gotten out into the community, the messages that we get of people thanking us for recognizing him and all that he's done for their kids. So, another common denominator I think about these individuals is, they're helping. They initially got involved because of their own kids, but it's amazing how their kids have moved on out of wrestling and they've stayed with the youth programs, donating their time, and had a tremendous impact on the youth in our country.
We're talking with Kraig Nellis, a bit of an update on the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic. Mentioned earlier that so many young people that have come through have gone on to represent the United States. If you don't mind, I'd like to recognize some of the Olympians that have come through the Dapper Dan. They include Bobby Weaver and Ken Schertow, Henry Cejudo and Sam Hazwinkle, the great Barry Davis and Coleman Scott, Mike Zadek and Randy Lewis, Kerry Colat, Oscar Wood, Harry Lester, Nate Carr, Dave Schultz, Kenny Monday, Joe Williams, Cale Sanderson, Jake Herbert, Brad Veering, Kurt Angle, Steve Mako. I'm sure there's probably one or two I've missed, but the idea is that it's more than just a state competition. It's more than one state versus another. It truly is a selection of some of the best in the world. They go on to represent the U.S., and I think that in and of itself is pretty cool. Again, Kraig Nellis, our guest, as we take a look at this year's event, the big time Hall of Fame event that most people look forward to. Let's talk a little bit about USA versus Pennsylvania. Can you break down the main event for us, Coach?
Yes. We've for the feature match between the Pennsylvania and the USA All-Stars, we don't go in the straight weight class order. And by the way, we don't have a 106-pound weight class in high school just because over the years the difficulty of getting the seniors at that weight class. So we started at 113 pounds, but we've juggled the lineup. Our last two dual meets this year will be at 152 pounds. I'm sorry, 145 pounds, which will be Tyler Berger, and he'll be wrestling. I'm just drawing a blank from Pennsylvania.
Is it Bryce Brill?
No. Tyler Berger will be wrestling a kid from Pennsylvania, Jason Nolf, who's going for his fourth state title. That'll be the second last match of the evening. And my understanding is that those two individuals wrestled at the Super 32, and Berger beat Nolf by the score of 2-0. So that's just my understanding. And then the feature match will be 170 pounds between Bo Nickel, who is attending. He's from Texas, and he's attending Penn State University.
Yeah.
And the Pennsylvania representative is Chance Marsteller, who's looking to get his fourth state title and finish his career undefeated in the state of Pennsylvania. And Chance is going on to continue his college career at Oklahoma State for John Smith. So that'll be the final two bouts of the evening. They're going to be really, really exciting. We're looking forward to those.
Yeah, Bo Nickel, we've been keeping track of his progress. We're on television in Oklahoma and in Texas, but Allen, Texas has been largely a target of ours because of Bo. So well respected. What a thorough athlete. A two-time youngster that's going to be going to Penn State, and I really like what he brings to the table for the Nittany Lions. That's the kind of guy that Cale Sanderson will be pinning his hopes on for sure. And you got to like that style of his too, don't you, Coach?
Oh, I sure do. We're bringing in the best high school seniors all across the country at their individual weight class. This is a great event. You mentioned Barry Davis earlier, who wrestled in the Wrestling Classic, and I remember watching him wrestle against Pennsylvania. So Barry was considered the favorite, like most of the USA guys are. But it was amazing in the match. He did lose in the Wrestling Classic, and it's amazing how many USA guys come into the Wrestling Classic. Many of them have undefeated high school careers, and it's their last high school match, and whoopsie daisy, and the Pennsylvania guy is fortunate enough to make it a close match and sometimes win in overtime or things like that. So we have just some fabulous flurries and really close matches. It's a real treat for the fans. We tell them, if you don't go to the Division I National Wrestling Championships, this is the next best thing.
Last year you recognized Jake Herbert, and obviously he's a young man that deserves as much recognition as we can give him. He continues to lead by example, but he was your Hall of Fame inductee. Who takes that place this year?
Well, this year, because it's the 40th anniversary, we're not going to have a Hall of Fame inductee this year. We're going to do some other things during our intermission, and really our goal is to recognize some of the committee members that have been on the committee for 40 years, investing their time and energy. I can mention some of those. So
Absolutely.
Gene Bowman was the director for the event for the first 25 years before he handed the baton to Frank and I. So and of course it's taken two of us to do what he did for the first 25 years. Manuel Piakis is another one of those very successful wrestler in high school at Cannonsburg High School. wrestling coach, teacher, athletic director, had a big impact in his community. Bill Solominski's on the committee. He wrestled for Rex Perry at the University of Pittsburgh and with the Perrys and the Coach Bubs of the world. And he was a high school coach here in Western Pennsylvania. So those are just three of the guys. We've asked some of the other old timers, so to speak, to come back. And then we're also going to recognize in the audience the wrestlers that have participated in the Classic. So this year we opted to bypass the Hall of Fame.
You know, it's interesting you would do that. In many ways, you are saluting every reason why this event has been successful. The individuals that have been such an important part to its structure. Again, we're talking with Kraig Nellis, just one of the Nellis boys, of which there seems to be like 30. Their names all start with K. I think your mom and dad had to stop having kids once they ran out of names that started with a K. True or not?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. When they got to Kyle, I think they were struggling for a K name. I think the next kid would have been called Kleenex.
Kleenex, yeah. That's a good one. How many boys are there total?
There's 6 boys and 1 girl. My sister Kathy is the oldest, and she's been a great supporter and advocate of us boys and our wrestling careers. And today I still work with her relative to supporting the Wrestling Classic. So her company produces the shirts and the banners and things like that. So I really enjoy working with her. My sister, my brothers and I will all tell you the same thing. Growing up, she was fabulous. My older brothers would go to the PIAA state tournament. My parents would take them. My sister was the big sister of the mother that would take me, Kenny, and Kyle to the Junior Olympic wrestling tournaments and weigh us in and coach us. And what I remember about my high school years of wrestling, when you wear those ear guards, there's only certain voices that you allow through to hear when the gym's yelling. One is usually your high school coach, but when you went out of bounds and you're walking back to the center, and I would hear my sister yell my family name that my sister and my mother and my aunts called me by, that got my engine running a little faster and pumped me up. So we all love my sister Kathy. And then Keith, Kevin, and Kurt were considered the big boys in our family. And then there was a 4-year gap, and me, Kenny, and Kyle. Kenny and I were fortunate to wrestle for Coach Bub at Clarion. My brother Kyle wrestled at the University of Pittsburgh, where my older brothers wrestled. My older brothers wrestled with Randy Staldemeyer. They were the same age, Keith and Kevin. And my brother Kyle wrestled for Randy and had a great career there. He almost had 100 career wins his senior year, and he was an All-American.
Isn't that something? Well, I would tell you this, that there's so many good and positive things from the Classic. This is not just something you can show up and do. This is something you have to be invited. You are vetted, if you will, through a series of committee meetings and phone calls and conference calls. This is something that they take very seriously, which is why it's so highly respected, the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic. And we're talking with one of those that has literally made it what it is today. And again, it's a team effort. It's the first thing he tells me. It's a team effort. Your pipeline to the future, as one of your sponsors say, Polycore says your pipeline to the future happens to be wrestling. And that's okay. That's what we look at. That's what we endorse. And we want to thank our friends at U.S. Steel, by the way, proudly continuing to support the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic. Never has been the foundation of our sport been as strong as it is right now with the support of U.S. Steel, and we appreciate those guys so much. And you can let them know I said that. The foundation to our sport has never been so strong than it is when we have the support of U.S. Steel. All right, Coach, I know I'm missing a bunch of different things. What are they? What are some of the other things you would like to make sure we get across in our interview today?
Well, what I like to tell our sponsors, we have 3 key missions, right? One is we want to put on a first-class event for the city of Pittsburgh and the wrestling community, and that's a direct reflection of our sponsors. So we want to do it right, and we want to do the right things for the event, and that's the committee. We're always challenging ourselves, making sure we're doing the right thing, and trying to make sure everyone has a good experience, whether that be the wrestlers that we're that are nominees, the wrestlers that are selected, as we interact with them and bring them into the city of Pittsburgh, their coaches, their parents and family, of course, the fans and our sponsors. So we want everyone across the board to have a good experience when they're interacting with the Dapper Dan charities and with the Wrestling Classic Committee. The second thing we're trying to do is drawing a blank. The third thing is, have proceeds for the event that, again, is the fuel to support wrestling programs in the inner city. These are in areas where there are no wrestling programs, and they're typically higher risk areas. So I'm fortunate enough to be directly involved in that, and I get to see firsthand the impact that our wrestling programs have on kids. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them come from tough environments, a lot of single parent relationships. A lot of times it's their grandparents that are bringing them to practice and taking them to the tournaments, etc. So those are one of the key things.
Over your shoulder is the poster, and of course, if you attend, you'll be able to pick up the copy of the program. And this year's program is important. It's the 40th edition. It's the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic, the Rose Bowl of wrestling, if you will. The 40th edition will take place Sunday, March 16th, around the corner. We are days away and counting. 4 o'clock, the WPIAA AllStars versus Oklahoma. 6 o'clock, at least this is on the schedule, and they're going to shoot to it. PA AllStars versus USA AllStars, and it will be at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse on the campus of the University of Pittsburgh. You got to understand the parking there. Make sure you get there early, get yourself well situated. Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, a great place, a wonderful history for the sport of wrestling. How are they to work with? I understand since Pitt has started to win, things are getting a little slimmer there time-wise. These guys they're in there practicing all the time, man. They are working hard.
Yeah, Randy Stoltemeyer has done a great job for the 32, 33 years that he was there as a coach, and of course he was a competitor there and a four-time All-American. And Randy's personal friends with our family, growing up with my older brothers, and then passed the baton on. But the University of Pittsburgh has been great for us. There's a lot of things that go on at the University of Pittsburgh, and they need to make the facility available to their athletes and their athletic programs, whether it's volleyball, gymnastics, some other events that are held there. But they do their best to accommodate us. We obviously have to have our event after the PIAA state championships. We can't have it before, and we don't want it to be too long or in conflict with the NCAA Division I championships. So every year we need to look at the schedule and make a request to the Pitt Fieldhouse, and they do a great job trying to support us. So we need to make sure we get our venue lined up, which is the Fieldhouse, our hotel headquarters, and our date all synchronized. So again, every year, Frank and I, it's like starting to plan a new wedding every year.
You just don't know who the participants in the wedding are.
Yeah, that's right.
That'd be different, wouldn't it? Plan a wedding and let's see who shows up. Kraig Nellis, always good to talk to you. Fans, you can find out more about the Classic online. It's WrestlingClassic.com. Simple enough. WrestlingClassic.com. They were first in line, grabbed up the name. It's a cool one. WrestlingClassic.com. The Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic. And perhaps we can end with this. Tell me the history of the name, the Dapper Dan. Where does the name Dapper Dan come from?
That's a great question, Scott, and I get the privilege to tell the incoming athletes every year about the history at our welcome banquet. So in 1936, there was a sports writer named Al Abrams, and he used to write articles about the professional athletes in the city of Pittsburgh, and he often hung out outside the prestigious Duquesne Club. And he would interview these athletes, and a lot of times he did not want to kind of divulge their name, and he always referenced them as Dapper Dans because of the way they dressed. And so he and another friend had this idea, and they said, well, hey, let's use these professional athletes as a platform to draw people together to raise money for sponsorship. And so they had the very first Dapper Dan dinner. I believe they sold tickets at about $5 a piece. Their motto was simple, as I stated earlier: let's have a good product, charge a fair price, and people will come, and they did, and that was the start of this two-fisted punch between sports entertainment and charity giving, and so that model, I believe the Dapper Dan Charities just finished their 80th year, where we recognize the sportsman and woman athlete of the year. So it's a great event. And then the Dapper Dan Charities also has the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic and one other event. So the Wrestling Classic, which started, 39 years ago, basically uh, in its infancy. First of all, my older brothers got to wrestle on a PIAA All-Star team that went to Illinois, or Illinois came to us. And ironically, Frank Volcano's dad, was one of the instrumental people in all of that and starting that. And that was the prerequisite, and then it evolved into the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic, USA versus PA. And we've taken that same model, right? Just we we want to put together a great product. We charge a fair price, and the people come and they love it. It's rewarding for me when I get the messages and the phone calls, and Frank, we get ticket order sales from people that have been coming to the event for 30 plus years, sitting, in some of the same seats. And we get kids that, are coming from across the country. This is the only time they're probably going to be here in their life. That's why it's so important that we have a good experience for them. And the messages that they provide us complimentary after they've been here and gone home, it makes all the work and energy that you put into putting on the Wrestling Classic all worthwhile.
Outstanding, dude. Well, here we go. United States Steel Corporation, amongst others, is pleased to present the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic, the Rose Bowl of Wrestling. It'll be the 40th edition on Sunday, March 16th. I want you to be a part of it. Again, get your tickets. Go online, wrestlingclassic.com. Be a part of it and be a sponsor, be a contributor. Even if it's $1, give an extra $1, give an extra 5 or 10 above your ticket price. Remember, the ultimate goal is to make sure kids get an opportunity to wrestle, to expand their knowledge of this sport, to expand their knowledge of their physicality beyond even what they know that they can do. And they do it through the Dapper Dan. And what a stage indeed. You're in rarefied air if you got to wrestle at the Dapper Dan or within the Dapper Dan Charities. We appreciate it. Kraig Nellis, thank you so much today. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, hey Scott, on behalf of the Dapper Dan Charities and the PG, which is the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and the rest of the Wrestling Classic Committee, I want to say thank you for taking time to educate your listeners and viewers about the Dapper Dan Wrestling Classic.
Oh, it's always our pleasure. I only wish we did it about 40 years ago. And we could have been with you 40 years. That would have been quite a run indeed. Kraig Nellis has been our guest. I'm Scott Casper. Thanks for watching.